When most people think D&D, they think high fantasy. They're thinking about orcs and elves and tieflings and all of these other races mixed together and mingling across the lands. But what happens when you take away potentially the most important aspect to that setting? That's right. What if your setting had little to no magic at all? Would it still be D&D? I mean, people really have a lot of varied answer on this because D&D is so magic dependent a lot of the time. And now this is something we see sometimes in D&D, especially when there's an anti-magic zone that's keeping people from being able to use any magic, and it can be devastating to some of these D&D fantasy cities. But what happens when it's not one city, but rather the whole world? Now, me personally as a DM, one of my favorite ways to use this idea is through using low magic systems, but especially hard magic systems. Now, I've been writing my own hard magic system for my pre-made D&D campaign that I'm going to be releasing at the end of this year, and honestly, I've run into a lot of problems. It's been really challenging because D&D really wasn't made for this to happen, so I kind of want to sit down and have a conversation about what I've found challenging and what are some potential both implications for it and ways that you can go about creating your own low magic setting for D&D, because it's a really interesting idea. Now, I've covered this across a lot of different videos that I put out on this channel about how much I love the idea of low magic settings, and honestly, the fact that I personally like to force my players to make hard choices, and that's why I fall in love with this idea of a low magic system, is what happens when you have to carefully choose each and every spell slot you're going to use. It makes it a lot more challenging to decide what's going to be an important spell. Potentially, if a long rest won't even recover those spell slots, what's your party going to do if someone's downed? Will the cleric use inflict wounds, or are they going to save that spell slot to be able to heal their teammates? It's a really interesting thought, and honestly, it makes my players question what they're gonna do with the use of magic. And that's what I love about this setting. When you force a player to make one of those hard choices, honestly, it gives room for their character to grow. It's very easy for a character to stay one-dimensional if there's no, basically, causation to their effects. But when you don't have many options or things aren't reversible, it makes a very important thing for your players to sit down and really think about what they're going to do for the future, and that's what I'm after. I'm looking to tell a story with my players and make them make choices that are going to really impact both the party and the world around them. Now, in my hard magic system I'm making, monsters drop these crystals, and what's important about the crystals is they equate to a spell slot. So it's completely random what the party gets. You can buy them, you can trade them, and they're basically a form of currency in my world. And I love this idea because it's really important to think about the fact that each one of those spell slots has a monetary value, but also you have a finite amount of them. With that, one wasteful use of a crystal could keep you from potentially resurrecting a downed teammate, or it could keep you from being able to do the damage that you need to do to be able to kill the final boss. It really makes every spell truly matter to the players. And honestly, so far in playtesting it, I love this idea. I think it's been a great success. Now, I'm gonna keep tweaking it, but so far, I think a lot of these ideas have really useful implications. Part of the reason I chose to go with this method rather than just grabbing crystals or maybe regenerating spell slots in a slower way was with the crystals coming from monsters that they had to kill, it incentivizes my party to go out and slay monsters, to adventure, and to go into dungeons, which is really what I want my players doing. I want them exploring these dungeons, learning the history of the world that's been lost in those dungeons, and gaining the crystals as they go so that they can cast more, bigger, more powerful spells as they take on greater dangers. And honestly, I think this is a great storytelling piece, especially in the campaign that I'm planning, because I want it to be very cut and dry on why the players are going to do this. They're going to fight the dungeon to better the people around them, to learn about history, but also to be able to support the lifestyle of the people in the city, to have the magic crystals to fuel the lamps or the water or the pipes. There's so much potential for this, and it gives my players a clear reason to go and run into a dungeon. And I think think that that's a nice storytelling piece, especially as I'm planning to release this as a campaign for people to run. It gives you a better story element for you to kind of easily convince your players to go into these dungeons, and now they have a reason to do so. Now, I will say, with this kind of hard magic system that I'm running, a big challenge to balance is warlocks, and that's something that personally I haven't found a great way to manage, because you can't really make cantrips attached to crystals either. If you were to do that, some cantrips like create bonfire just become unusable, because why would I do that when I could instead cast chill touch or something like a mage hand or some sort of other spell? It makes some of these more utility focused ones a little bit less useful. So what I've kind of chosen to go with is more of like my patrons of the warlocks are a little bit more demanding. They're going to be a little bit more involved, and because of that, it's going to limit the power of the warlock. On top of that, maybe there are some regions that aren't friendly to warlocks, and that makes it kind of dynamic, and that's part of why, I won't just see a party of 6 warlocks, because it's objectively better than running any other caster. So it kind of forces the party to be a little more dynamic, and that's something that I personally liked a lot in what I found. But if somebody else has solutions on how to kind of deal with this problem, leave the comment down below, because I'm interested to see what other people can come up with for this issue as well. Now, obviously, you can run a no magic game and talk to your players beforehand and just be like, hey, I don't want to run any casters. Personally, I think, though, both hard magic systems and low magic in general are really utilized in a lot of different ways. First of all, you can use it as a storytelling piece to maybe have a post-apocalyptic world like I want to build, or maybe you want to build something contemporary and like the modern day with technology being the ruling factor. Then you have to kind of build in these ideas and think about it. Magic could still be something you use in a contemporary setting for D&D, but you don't want it to be really prevalent, because why would people invest in science then? It makes it a lot more intriguing, because wizards can learn it anyway. They're just normal people that devote themselves to studying. So if you're thinking about it from that angle, why wouldn't they just study magic rather than science? So with contemporary settings, you really need to dig into the why and how magic is cast in order to push people to build something that isn't as conventional. Now, if you liked this video and you found it kind of interesting, let me know in the comments, and consider liking and watching some of the other videos on this channel. It really helps the channel grow, and I really want to say thank you to everybody, because we just crossed the milestone of 150 subscribers, and I couldn't be more excited about it. So thank you to everyone who supported, and I look forward to seeing you next week with the next video.